Hello and welcome back to the channel. This video is part 2 of ranking every single playoff series from 2020 to 2025, all 90 series, based on how devastating and disappointing the loss was for the losing side. In part 1, I got into my criteria and ranked the bottom 5 tiers, number 90 to number 43. And in this video, I will rank through number 19 on the list. To start our first tier of the video, I have 3 Lakers first round losses. At 42, I have 2021 Suns over Lakers. The Lakers were defending champs, but injuries, which sidelined stars Anthony Davis and LeBron James for long stretches, saw them barely make into the playoffs as the 7 seed after a classic play-in game win against Golden State. Still, LA was a great team when their stars played. They were actually favored in this matchup against the 2 seed Suns, and went up 2-1 in the series. But ultimately, another injury to Davis in Game 4 halted that momentum, allowing Phoenix to win 3 straight games and ending LA's title defense. At 41, I have 2023 Knicks over Cavs, and at 40, I have 2025 Timberwolves over Lakers. These two first-round series are very similar. Both teams had recently made superstar acquisitions. The Cavs had added Donovan Mitchell from the Jazz, and the Lakers, Luka Doncic from the Mavericks. Both teams were higher seeds and clear favorites going into their first round series, but ultimately both got cooked in 5 games. For LA specifically, their lack of depth hurt them a lot as they always ran out of gas in the fourth quarter. In total, they were a minus 42 in the final period that series, averaging 17 points per quarter, and blew a 10-point fourth quarter lead in Game 4. For the Cavs, the only real close loss was Game 1 at home, which they led with under 2 minutes left. At 39, I have another Lakers first round loss when defending champion Nuggets defeated them in 2024. Denver was big favorites in 1 in 5 games, so why is it this high? Well, for one, Denver had swept LA in the previous year's conference finals. Additionally, LA led at halftime of every single game in this series. In Game 2, they blew a 20-point third quarter lead, losing on a Jamal Murray buzzer beater. And Murray broke LA's hearts again in Game 5 by hitting another last-second game-winning shot to send the Lakers home. At 38, I have the 2025 Warriors over Rockets in the first round. Despite being the 2 seed, the Rockets were clear underdogs, and they lost an excruciating 7-game series. The two teams split the first 2 games in Houston. Houston lost Game 3 on the road, even though Warriors co-star Jimmy Butler was injured, and in Game 4, they lost a nail-biter to go down 3-1. Houston came back and forced a Game 7 at home, and even though Steph Curry didn't score his first points of Game 7 until there were 30 seconds left in the first half, the Rockets lost convincingly. Also, this was the 5th straight series the Rockets lost to the Warriors, but this time with a different cast of players. At 37, I have a very similar series. 2023 Warriors over Kings in the first round. Sacramento was in the playoffs for the first time in 17 years, but were underdogs as the 3 seed. The Kings won the first 2 games at home, and the Warriors' Draymond Green was suspended for Game 3 at home. Still, the Warriors took that game to avoid a 3-0 deficit, and then won Game 4 as a last-second Kings shot rimmed out. The Kings won Game 6 on the road to force a Game 7 at home, but Curry scored a then record 50 points in Game 7 to eliminate Sacramento, and they have not been back to the playoffs since. Moving up a tier, at 36, I have 2025 Nuggets over Clippers in the first round. LA were slight underdogs, but these two teams had the same record and were very evenly matched. This was also LA's best chance to win since at least 2021, since injury-prone star Kawhi Leonard was healthy for the entire series. Their closest losses were Game 1, which they lost in overtime on the road, in Game 4, which they lost on a buzzer-beating dunk with a chance to go up 3-1 in the series. Furthermore, the Nuggets were going to lose to the eventual champions in 7 in the next round. So even though this was a first-round series, the Clippers had a good chance of winning the title this year. At 35, I have 2023 Nuggets over Suns in the second round. The Nuggets were the 1 seed, but because the Suns had traded for Kevin Durant at the trade deadline, they were actually favored in the series. And this shocked me because Denver was clearly the better team and won convincingly in 6 games, with none of their wins being close. But definitely a disappointing outcome for Phoenix, who had gone all in for the title. At 34, I have 2024 Celtics over Pacers in the conference finals. The Celtics were massive favorites and swept Indiana. So why isn't this with the chalk conference finals tier? Because Indiana lost a heartbreaking game 1 in Boston as Jaylen Brown hit a game-tying 3 at the end of regulation, and Pacers star Tyrese Haliburton got injured this game, even further diminishing their odds. But still, they were competitive. In game 3, they blew an 18-point third-quarter lead and lost on a last-second steal. And in game 4, they blew a 9-point fourth-quarter lead and lost on a last-minute game winner. At 33, I have 2024 Mavericks over Thunder in the second round. Thunder were barely favored as the 1 seed, but lost in 6 games, with the most tragic loss being the Game 6 closeout game, which they lost on a last-second foul and blew a 16-point halftime lead. This is lower because the Thunder were a young team who won the title the next year. At 32, I have 2020 Celtics over Raptors in the second round. The Raptors were defending champions, but had lost Kawhi Leonard in free agency. Still, they were surprisingly favored in the series though, but never led in the overall series score. However, they forced it to Game 7, where they lost a down-to-the-wire game to be eliminated. At 31, I have 2021 Suns over Clippers in the conference finals. The Clippers were underdogs with Kawhi Leonard injured. However, Suns star Chris Paul was also out for Game 1 with COVID, and they still lost that game. They also lost Game 2 on a buzzer-beating alley-oop, and they lost Game 4 by just 4 points despite missing 11 free throws, and they got blown out at home in Game 6 to lose the series. Moving up a tier, at 30, I have 2024 Celtics over Mavericks in the finals. The Celtics were clear favorites who won in 5 games, so why is this so much higher than the other final series I had multiple tiers below? Well, it's because the Mavericks seem poised to be a great team for years to come, and at the trade deadline the next year, they dealt away franchise superstar Luka Doncic in arguably the worst trade in NBA history. So that fact really sours what at the time was an incredible finals run and causes it to be much higher up on this list. At 29, I have 2022 Celtics over the Nets in the first round. Boston, as the 2 seed, was tiny favorites by the time the series started and swept the Nets, with the only nail-biting win being Game 1, which they won on a last-second buzzer beater. The overall season for the Nets was just very sour. Kyrie Irving missed significant time due to his anti-vaccine stance, and James Harden forced to trade to the 76ers in his first full season on the team, and Ben Simmons, who they acquired from Philadelphia, refused to play. At 28, I have another series where a Kevin Durant team got swept in the first round, 2024 Timberwolves over Suns. The Suns had gone all in that offseason by foolishly trading for Bradley Beal, so they were favored despite being the 6th seed, but they got dominated, losing by an average of 16 points per game. At 27, I have 2023 Lakers over Warriors in the second round, a series the defending champion Warriors lost in 6 games, despite being slight favorites. Their 2 close losses were Game 1 and Game 4, but this was also the culmination of a super sour season, which started when Draymond Green punched Jordan Poole in practice preseason, and Poole played so poorly this series that the team was basically forced to trade him that offseason. At 26, I have the Lakers series from the previous round, 2023 Lakers over Grizzlies. Memphis was still a young team at this point, so as the 2 seed, they were slight favorites over LA. But they're also a cocky team who are becoming more disliked, with John Morant's infamous on Finding the West comments, and Dylan Brooks calling LeBron old and saying that he pokes bears. And the Grizzlies really got shut up this series. In Game 3, they were outscored 35-9 in the first quarter, and in the closeout Game 6, they lost by 40. Like the Warriors with Jordan Poole, this series was so bad for Brooks that he was told he could not return to the team under any circumstances the next season. Rounding out this tier, I have the 2022 Mavericks over Jazz in the first round. The Jazz were huge favorites as Mavs superstar Luka Doncic was out the first 3 games of the series, but Utah still fell behind 2-1 and lost in 6. This loss also signaled the end of the Mitchell and Gobert era for Utah, as the next offseason, those 2 were traded away. Now, starting the next tier is 2023 Nuggets over Lakers in the conference finals. Nuggets were slight favorites, but many picked LA after the win over the Warriors in the previous round. The Nuggets swept the series, but all the games were close. Game 1, LA almost came back from down 20 and seemed to gain some momentum for the series. But in Game 2, they blew an 11-point third-quarter lead, and in Game 3, they also led in the fourth quarter before giving up a crucial 13-0 run to lose. And in Game 4, they blew a 15-point lead before losing in the final seconds. The Nuggets were super hot from three this series, shooting over 40% and just hit some of the most ridiculous shots you'll ever see. And finally, the team Ellie would have played in the finals was the 8-seed Heat, so a series they likely would have been clear favorites in. At 23 is 2024 Mavs over T-Wolves in the conference finals. The T-Wolves had home court advantage and were the favorites after an upset win in the previous round, but they lost the series in 5 games, including all of their home games. Games 1 and 2, they lost in nail-biters, leading for the majority of both of those games. In Game 2, they blew a 16-point third-quarter lead and lost in a last-second 3. And finally, in the closeout Game 5 at home, they trailed by 36 points and got blown out. Back then, the Wolves looked like a team on the rise, but now, 2 years later, it seems like 2024 may have been their best shot of making it to the finals. At 22, I have 2020 Heat over Celtics in the conference finals. Celtics lost in 6 as slight favorites, and Game 1 was probably the worst loss, blowing a 14-point fourth-quarter lead and losing an OT on Bam Adebayo's iconic block of Jason Tatum. The Celtics also blew a 17-point lead in Game 2, and Miami had some crazy role-play performances this series, like rookie Tyler Hero dropping 37 in Game 4, or 36-year-old Andre Iguodala going 4 for 4 from 3 in Game 6. Next up is 2022 Celtics over Bucks in the second round. Milwaukee were defending champs, but without co-star Chris Middleton, so they were underdogs this series. However, they were up 1-0, 2-1, and even 3-2 in the overall series score after a spectacular win on the road in Game 5. However, they were unable to close out the series at home in Game 6, and then got destroyed in Game 7. And the Bucks have not won a playoff series since. Rounding out this tier and this video, I have 2 second-round series where the 1 seed lost as big favorites. First up is 2020 Heat over the Bucks in the bubble. The Bucks were one of the most dominant regular season teams of all time, but lost in 5 games for a second consecutive disappointing playoff exit. They lost on a last-second foul in Game 2, and in Game 3, they led by 14 late in the third quarter before giving up a 42-13 run to end the game. They also led by double digits in their other 2 losses as well. Finally is 2025 Cavs versus Pacers, which Indiana won in 5 games, including all 3 games in Cleveland. Indiana shot the lights out from 3, making 45% of their threes in their 4 wins. Game 1, Cleveland went down by a dozen in the third, came back to take the lead in the fourth, before collapsing in the final minutes. Game 2, Cleveland was the one who had the big lead of 17 late in the third, but the Pacers came back and won, despite trailing by 7 points with 50 seconds left in the game. Game 4, Cleveland got destroyed, falling behind by 43 points, and in Game 5, they went up by 19 early just to give up a 55-24 run in the middle of the game. They came back in the fourth just to again collapse in the final moments and lose by 9. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and see you next time.